Hello, my name is Amanda, and here I have my presentation on the Little Ice Age. So, the Little Ice Age will get into details about what it was, some great aspects about it, how it affected people, but also evidence and the history about it. So, first things off, what is the Little Ice Age? So, the Little Ice Age is different than what you typically think about when you hear the word Ice Age. When you hear Ice Age, typically people think of the prehistoric time where there were woolly mammoths, and it was completely different time back then, everything frozen over and completely frozen. But with this ice age called the Little Ice Age, it is a bit different. So let's get into details about what it is. So, what it is, it's a period of regional coolings. With these periods of coolings, though, there was no period that was a really prolonged period of cold. So it was in more like little phases. And as you can see here on the two pictures I have, this shows you how deep the temperatures got with the Little Ice Age compared to other periods of time. So these are great representations of it. And then also within the Little Ice Age, there were great mountain glacier expansions that happened as well. So for the Little Ice Age, we can see that it happened through the 1300s through 1850 as well. The first drop we saw happened in the 1300s, and then the second drop happened between 1560 and ended in the 1850s. So when we saw the first drop, we are seeing that the average global temperature dropped by 2 degrees Celsius. So what we see are cooling phases that happened during the Little Ice Age, and the main areas where we saw the cooling phases were in the northern hemisphere. Some of those places were North America, Europe, and Africa. But then we also saw some in the southern hemisphere, such as New Zealand and Asia. Now, not everyone experienced these cooling phases. One place that didn't experience it was southern China, and not eastern China. Then also, all these cooling phases did not happen at the exact same time. They actually happened at different times, and each place experienced a different type of weather experience. So for Europe, they experienced more of a heavy rainfall, whereas North America experienced more like cooler temperatures and drier environment. And then we have Africa and Asia. They experience primarily droughts during this time period of the Little Ice Age. So how did this Little Ice Age become started? So we can see here are the main different causes that caused the Little Ice Age. We have the solar output. Now, this is when there was a decrease in sunspot activity that also linked to the decrease in solar radiation. Now, you may be wondering, what does this mean? This means that there was less energy reaching Earth's surface. In other words, this was providing less warmth and less energy for our agriculture back then. And there was two main different periods during the Little Ice Age when solar outputs were happening. The first main period was from the 1450s to the 1540s, and then again in the 1640s to the 1710s. Another cause of the Little Ice Age that we saw was changes in atmospheric circulation. So like I was saying, this is part of the weather aspect that we saw. Temperatures were dropping, as well as the energy as well was a big factor. But another thing that we saw was an increase in volcanism. Now, you may be wondering, how does volcanic eruptions cause a ice age, basically. So once the volcano erupts, it can eject large amounts of volcanic ash into the atmosphere. Now, what this does, it blocks the sunlight and it makes temperatures start to drop. So there were several eruptions during the Little Ice Age. We can see, I have notated that Laki in Iceland in 1738 was one, Lombok in Indonesia in 1257 was another one. And then lastly, another major one was Mount Tabora in Indonesia in the 1850s. Now, how do we know the Little Ice Age actually happened? That is a great reason, there could be some to believe. Some people could not believe it, but we have evidence that the Little Ice Age actually happened. Many different evidence. We saw that once glaciers stopped expanding, they started to re-advance. This was another way we can see that there was an ice age and that it had stopped. We can also look at the tree rings. So these are rings in the core of a tree that go into detail about the events that happened. And then there was an increase in flooding. So we can also see that as well. Ice cores are a great way to also see the evidence that we pulled. So this picture here shows what an ice core is. You grab it from the surface, pull a machine down into the surface, and grab a core out of the surface of ice. And when you cut it open, it goes into detail about certain aspects that happened during the Ice Age, the Little Ice Age. There was also records of canals freezing and rivers freezing. And we also had rain records. So from the 1650s, we had gained rain records about the information of the meteorological measurements in Europe. So this goes into detail of the data about the weather in Europe, and which explains the heavy rainfall. We had details about that. So that shows us another evidence that the Little Ice Age actually did happen. Now, what did this Little Ice Age do to society? How did it affect society? So we can see that it destroyed farms, churches, and villages, primarily in Switzerland, where the Swiss Alps were located, because those glaciers did expand, and those did affect those farms and churches there. But we also see that some colonies were cut off from their colonization. This is tough on those colonies because they're then getting cut off from their colonization that has food and resources they may need. So this is harder for them. It could cause death in those colonies, which it did, which is a very hard aspect. Nope. And then this Ice Age had a positive effect on society. Human civilization actually thrived, and they were able to expand after the Little Ice Age happened. So even though there were some negative effects on society during the Little Ice Age, after we saw the positives. So here we have is a summary of what I went over in my PowerPoint for you, that the Little Ice Age is a series of cooling phases. What had caused the Little Ice Age, such as the volcanic eruptions, the solar output, and the changes in weather. How we got evidence from the Little Ice Age, such as the ice cores, the tree rings, and we saw records actually from Europe. And then lastly, we saw the effects on society. Even though, like I said, most of them are negative effects, we did see that positive effect that greatly made civilization better for them, and they thrived off this, which is always great to see. This topic, the Little Ice Age, is always great to know about in our history. Not many people know that this event actually happened. Before I did this research project, I did not know it happened, so it was a great topic to learn about, and that not all ice ages happen in prehistoric times when we think of woolly mammoths, and that they actually happened after that, and more times when civilization was actually becoming prominent. And that is the end of my PowerPoint. I hope you enjoyed it.